are back. We are back. It's a thirsty Thursday.
It
What's
is.
up, Trey?
And I'm very thirsty without the drinks to quench my thirst. So it is.
Are you? How thirsty are you? Tell me about it.
Yeah, that's messed up, man. How you gonna do me like that? It's all good though. I can go without.
You'll be joining before it's over.
I mean, March Madness is coming up, man. So I got plenty of days to get it in. So
this is what I like to refer to as big liver time of year. This is big liver preseason. We have to stretch our livers out a little bit for what's about to happen. We got March Madness going on, which that's, a month of solid pre-gaming. This is where we put in the work. This is like football season, preseason for degenerates and drinkers is what I would like to say. We get all the betting we can handle in the next few weeks.
I think you sweat it out all summer, man. You sweat it out during the hot days of summer.
But come September, when we got, rivalry starting up in college football, we got the NFL season, we remember the work that we put in at this time of year, and it propels us through our seasons. That's how I like to look at it. That's what I tell myself in the mirror anyway.
Right. What's the saying? Stay prepared and you never have to get ready, or something to that effect.
It's like something like the 5 Ps. Proper planning prevents piss poor performances.
I've never heard that in my whole life, but
Coach told me that a long time ago. That's what coaches tell the people who aren't good at sports. Just prepare better.
Oh, that's why
I'm not going to tell you that you're just bad. Right.
Touche.
You wanted to get into some of this. I know you've been chomping at the bit, and we're going to have a guest join us today. You want to tell everybody about our guest?
Look, it's been a crazy week, man. We had free agency starting things off. Steeler Nation started things off really with the signing of Russell Wilson and all that. But in the middle of all this, middle of free agency, the middle of NFL teams trying to get better, and us just analyzing the mess out of teams, Nick Saban gets on, has a hearing, and there's a snippet, and you know what? We should have played it for the folks, but I'll tag it when we promote for the show. But there's a clip of Nick Saban out there.
I can paraphrase
and say, go ahead and paraphrase.
I'm very upset that the players are getting paid now. I retired in part because right after the season, after we lost, players were coming in and asking how much money they were going to get paid next season. And
he says this to say he got out the game because it was all about the development of young men. Me and the wife used to talk to the moms, and she was like, why are we doing this? Because it's not about preparing young men while they host these families in their $10 million home.
Everything I've known the sport to be in the last 50 years as a coach is now out the window.
Before me, my dad did it. But our guest,
he sounded like Al Pacino. He sounded like Al Pacino in any given Sunday. On our team, we used to fight for that inch, and now they don't fight for that inch. But,
and somebody who could speak to that and some of the inner workings of the NCAA is my good friend, Dominique Price, who is a man of many hats. He was my strong safety at Northwestern. Hit a lot of people and hit a lot of people very hard. That's what he did for a living while he was on our team. Also, after football, became a sports agent to represent these young men that Nick Saban and others developed. And after that, before and after that, he's a practicing attorney. My man, best friend, best man at my wedding, Dominique Price, is joining the show. My guy, what's going on, bro?
What's going on?
What's up, Dom?
What's up?
Now tell me you're not, before we get started, you're not going to let me be the solo one. I'm not riding solo, am I?
Oh, I'm an attorney, so
hey,
it's part of the business.
It's part of the occupation. But
the coffee cup has been put away, and the bourbon cup is out now.
You use transparent cups and glasses now that you're away from the office. So, but no, man, like I shared this with you. I shared this with we have a text group with a couple of other buddies, and when I saw that clip, it rubbed me the wrong way for many reasons. But he did it at a hearing too. I don't know if it was necessarily at Congress, but Senator Cruz is sitting next to him, which we can have a whole nother episode about how I feel about him. But we're not a political show, and we're going to keep it that way. But Nick Saban had the gall, the audacity to be like, he got out the game essentially because players' number one priority is getting paid. What say you, Mr. Price, when it comes to that?
It's funny because Nick Saban is speaking from a very unique place in the landscape of college sports.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big world of college sports out there, and Alabama is not your typical place, right? So he's dealing with athletes, mostly five-star type athletes, guys that are really at the pinnacle, top 1%, if not
Mm-hmm.
0.1% people in this industry. So, and I think one of the points that he said is like, that developing young men isn't part of it anymore. It's all the business. Well, if you don't want to be in the business at that level, you could happily move down to Division 3, where guys need that development and would love to be coached by a Nick Saban, and they're all about it for the love of the game. However, if you're in the business of getting paid, $150 million over a career, that is the landscape. If you're in it for it to be in the big time, you're going to be in the exclusive company of these athletes that also have that opportunity to make it. And I think there's a couple arguments too. I don't think there's anybody seriously in the conversation that wants to like rewind time and say that players shouldn't get any money at all. Like, if anybody has that argument, then like I don't even know what you're thinking at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like a lot of the hand wringing from guys like Nick Saban comes with the combination of what's happening in the NIL space, as well as the transfer portal and some of the rule changes there that have created what they're calling free agency. But I take that same point, and if coaches are moving all the time. So if you want to restrict movement for players, like let's talk about restricted movement for coaches as well.
So let me ask this,
Dom,
because go ahead, or let me
I was
ask
say,
this
Dom,
real quick, Rich.
go ahead.
It sounds like, and this is my issue, is that we are where we are in college football because the NCAA was late to the party. But yet and still, when you hear guys like Dabo Swinney and Nick Saban talk, they're placing the onus on the players. And they never bring up the NCAA's part in this and regulating NIL or coming up with a game plan that works as best as it could for both sides. Why do you think even Nick Saban on his way out did not mention once the NCAA and their lack of organization when it comes to stuff like this?
Yeah, because I mean that's them. I mean, the NCAA is a member-led institution, so it includes the university. So when you say the NCAA was slow on it, it's the people at the schools that were slow on it too. And when you look at it from that perspective, they had all the time in the world.
Right.
We knew that this was coming at the very least since the O'Bannon case. And that was, that's 10 years before NIL comes out. So in that 10-year period, nothing happened. And really what kind of motivated the NCAA to find was that, people started to recognize the hypocrisy of the system, and state legislators started coming out with their own laws. So California was one of the first to come out with an NIL law, then Florida. So they had the Supreme Court case called the Austin case, which basically said, again, we're not a political show, so I won't state my opinions about Justice Kavanaugh, but he ripped the whole system to shreds in his concurrent opinion, and it basically forced their hand. So finally, they were like, okay, but didn't really have a plan in place. They just came out with an interim policy that was like 2 lines long. And it begs the question, what were you doing for the last 10 years? You knew this was coming. Like, what was the plan? What were the procedures that you could have put in place? And like, none of that was there. And now they're kind of scrambling to kind of create that framework on the fly. And they're asking Congress to step in because no one wants to kind of take the onus. It's like, well, maybe Congress will do it for us. So that was kind of part of the reason why Nick Saban was there at Congress.
Nobody wants the dirt on their hands. Nobody wants to be the bad guy. It's really funny when you look at it. a sport that is a collision sport. It is fostered and bred off of collision. And there's so many people involved with the sport that are afraid of confrontation.
Oh,
like, when it comes down to it, like, it's really ironic
Yeah.
when like the people in the positions and the powers that be in the NCAA, in the NFL, there's so many people just afraid of confrontation. And that's so Trey and I, we'll talk and we'll kind of map out our week, put a schedule together. And when he told me about having you on when this stuff with Saban, you offer a unique perspective from both sides. Obviously, you played the game. So I have a few questions, just kind of getting into stuff, but with the NIL and the legalities of things like that I think you offer a unique perspective on, but also just from an opinion standpoint, because we're here to give an opinion, talk sports, have fun. That's what we do. So obviously I want you to do that as well, but talk about like Nick Saban, you both as former players, college athletes. I look at what Nick Saban says, and it's just so disingenuous, comes off as whiny to me. You already hit on, you can go back to Division III and play, but let's just pretend, right? Let's be naive, put the blinders on. I live in Columbus, Ohio. Let's pretend that, Alabama never, ever gave players money before. Nobody ever got anything before. And it's
No
only
duffel
now that
bags.
it's being ruined because the players are getting money. So let's pretend all that.
Yeah.
It's always been a sport and a system that Alabama was rewarded because even if we pretend that stuff didn't happen, you have the finest facilities. You go to the finest of bowl games, the gift packages you get for going to a bowl games. There were perks for players, and that is what incentivized players to go there. So don't have sour grapes now that maybe Toledo can offer everybody $50K and somebody's going to want to go and play at Toledo over being fourth string at Alabama. And really what it comes off to me is sour grapes because the playing field has been evened for the power schools.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you bring up a great point. And, this is one of the things that they've complained about is the transferring thing. But that's one thing. But how about Alabama is hoarding a ton of players? You always think
they overcommit every year.
Yeah. So I always think back to that picture of who was it? You got they have like 5 NFL quarterbacks in their quarterback room at one time, and somebody in that room.
Yeah, was it like Tua and Mac Jones?
Jalen Hurts.
Tua, yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. So
while they had 5 NFL running backs and 4 NFL receivers, it was ridiculous.
Absolutely. So there's no reason that guys shouldn't be able to move if they were, the top guy in their high school and definitely have aspirations of playing in the NFL. Why should you have to sit on the bench somewhere because a school over recruited and had all these guys in one room?
Well, let's take, and this is actually something that I want you to let me know, because as I understand, a scholarship is a 1-year reoccurring scholarship. Like, it's good for 1 year. So if the NCAA really wanted to fix this a long time ago, start giving the players their 4 years up front. If you don't want somebody to leave and transfer, is that not how the system works? Is you get offered a scholarship and it's a 1 year at a time?
So that, to my understanding, they switched that up a few years ago, where now the conferences, Big Ten, I think, and the Big 12, offered 4-year scholarships essentially. Am I right, Don?
Yeah.
It wasn't a 1-year renewable when we played each year. Where you could,
that's what it was when you guys played.
Yeah,
when we played. Yeah,
but it's not that recent, but it's definitely some time after we got done playing, maybe in the early 2000 or mid 2010s when they made that rule. But it was only by conference. I'm not sure the SEC was on the same. I know for sure the Big 10 and Big 12 were. But I mean, to that point, you saw what Deion did actually last year, where he couldn't necessarily cut somebody. He just made it hard for them to want to stay at Colorado, essentially saying, giving them a nudge out the door. So that was one way that he kind of circumvented.
Maybe he should have kept some of those guys, hindsight being 2020. He might have wanted to keep a couple of them.
He had some decent luggage he might have wanted to hold on to. Not all Louis luggage.
The Marshall luggage looked pretty good protecting Shadur at the end of the day.
Right. But no, this whole Nick Saban thing just really, just took me back. I mean, we played. I remember being at Northwestern, and you'll laugh at this, but we had to struggle to get through, and we had to come up and be creative with the meals that we had to eat during the summer. And I made this one thing out of hot dogs, Jiffy cornbread, and canned chili.
Chili corn dog casserole. Oh, wait, chili cheese corn dog casserole.
Chili cheese. You can't leave out the cheese. These are the creations that we had to make because we didn't have all of our money had to go to our off-campus living arrangement that we shared with three other people. We split it 4 ways, and we had a tough time eating during the summer. And so when we see these athletes being able to finally market themselves and make money off their image, it's a great sight to see. But the backlash that comes with it, that is coming with it, when you hear about the traditionalists who, why can't the game, why can't you play for the love of the game? Why does it have the money? Why is it that college football, and to a certain extent college basketball, are the only ones that have to deal with it? Why do you think?
Yeah, it's funny, man, that you bring that up because it's the power dynamics and the economics of what they used to call the revenue generating sports are just it's totally unique. There's no other example in the world that is like that. So you have most of the revenue being drawn in from 2 specific sports, and the revenue drawn in by these sports really subsidize these other sports. And it's not a political show, but there's a lot of political things that play into it. There's definitely race dynamics that play into that. And I think one of the things that was really interesting about that dynamic is you look at the Varsity Blues scandal, right? So you have these rich and famous celebrities getting their kids into these universities, and they're on like rowing scholarships, and they're getting in to be on the rowing team, and they're on the
Who was that actress?
And Becky from
Lori Loughlin
from Full House.
Yeah. Full House. Yeah.
You said Varsity Blues, and my mind went to whipped cream and a whole other thing.
Right, that's a different Varsity Blues too. But yeah, you think about these students from affluent backgrounds that are getting into your USCs or your other schools like that, on these teams, but like kind of these revenue generating sports like basketball and football, these players coming from totally different kind of socioeconomic status, and the money that they bring in is paying for these other students. It's interesting, and it's the proposal that they're looking at and kind of that dynamic historically has been sort of like socialism in a way. It's like, okay, I know these people bring in the money, but we're just going to share it amongst everybody else. And it's weird because it's like a little pocket of sports, but the rest of sports is totally about capitalism. It's totally, individually driven. How much can I make? How much, can I do for my personal, economic gains? But they want to like create this little socialistic bubble of college sports. And it's interesting. It's very interesting.
So now it's time to put you on the spot because I want to just talk some ball, talk some NFL, talk some other stuff. But I want to know, you lay out, how do we fix it? What's the fix?
That's so where will we start? I know that you can't come. It's so hard to even because we're so muddled and fixed into the way.
Oh, it's the Wild West out there. It's crazy.
Yeah, and so they went from one extreme to the other extreme, and so like. How do we find some even ground? Like the thing is, once legislation starts getting passed, like and at some point it will, then it's really going to start getting messy. You're going to have a lot of pissed off people out there.
I'll give you an example. Take all of us. We're sitting in a Buffalo Wild Wings. The 3 of us. We're having a beer, watching some games. We're just talking football 15 years ago, right? And I look at you and I go, listen, the starting quarterback from Ohio State, who just went 11-1, only lost to the team that won the national championship, just decided I'm going to transfer to Syracuse. You would look at me like Doc in Back to the Future, like, who's the president? Ronald Reagan, the actor? Like, none of us would have believed this crap 15 years ago. So,
Right.
yeah, where do you start, and what are some things we can at least start addressing, and how soon? Because I'll tell you selfishly, if they delay this release of the college football PlayStation game again because they can't figure out how to pay these, I'm gonna be on
Well, apparently
fire.
They figured that one out.
Yeah, they figured that one out. What every player is supposed to get $500 and a copy of the game.
Yeah.
Right. Well, there was some breaking news that I'm gonna get to. I don't know if you saw, but we got some playoff changes already.
Ooh.
Okay.
So, but yeah. So before we dive into that, how do we fix this, Tom?
Yeah, there's, it's interesting that you say that, and it is the Wild West. Ironically, I'm kind of in the position that wants to push it even like maybe one more step further before we dial it back. One of the things that I think, this is great. A lot of players are getting money. It's excellent, and they have opportunity to bring in and money and change their lives for their families. However, the NCAA's continued ban on pay for play leaves players out of the biggest pool of money in the industry, and that's the TV money. Like
TV
all
money.
these Wendy's commercials are great. You can do endorsements for products and services, fine. But the biggest piece of the pie is players are excluded from that. So we got to figure that out. That's a big piece of the puzzle that still needs to be settled. But yeah, once they get that piece of the pie into it, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to something that like kind of made it more standard. So maybe not standard amounts, but at least standardized contracts. So the NCAA draws up a template contract. Kind of what the parameters are of the contracts, and there's not this kind of mystery of like you get all kinds of issues with what are the terms, how long is the contract, what if they transfer, what effect does that have on the contract? So that creates some stability there. The transfer thing is going to be interesting. The reason it is the way that it is now is because, again, a lawsuit. The NCAA didn't necessarily move one way or the other, and the judge decided, okay, enough is enough. Here's a preliminary injunction on this issue. But a preliminary injunction isn't really supposed to be like a permanent thing. So the transfer rule, I think, it's hard. It's hard to create a generalized rule that applies to every situation, right? And that's what happens. You have guys that, like you mentioned, maybe transfer for superficial reasons, or it's like, completely money driven. It's affecting what their graduation rates and all these things, right? So, yeah, there's some of that, but, it's hard to create a blanket ban on those transfers because you end up harming people that really need to transfer, whether it's for mental health reasons, they're trying to get back home to a sick family member. There's a lot of different things. So I think, there should be kind of a committee that gets involved in this, and they have the leeway to look at situations and know, like on a kind of case by case basis, whether this is something that's like a legitimate reason for transferring, or whether it's just, completely money driven or something like that. So yeah, I think, getting rid of some of the blanket rules, being able to look at specific situations, and yeah, give the players a little more of the piece of the pie. And I think a lot of it too, we really need time to look at the data. I think when it comes to talking about this situation, it's easy to make an anecdotal example of, wow, this situation right here is crazy, but that might not be the representative of what the whole looks like and what a rule should be based off of. So I'll be interested to see when they create more transparency on the contracts. That's another thing. Like we never see the contracts. So having standardized contracts, having some kind of database where we're keeping track of where the money's going, who's it going to, you can really have a better understanding of what's happening and, the best ways to make it work more smoothly and where it works for the students as well as the schools.
Well, my question for both of you is, because not everybody's Caleb Williams, right? You don't have a penthouse in LA. You're not getting $5 million. Yeah. Ohio State, I think, threw out $1 million for Quinn Ewers, and he got a truck from a local car dealer or something. And he played 4 snaps at Ohio State. Now he's at Texas. So my question for you guys as former college athletes, in the locker room, is it hard? Like, would it be hard to like look at that as an offensive lineman, a defensive back? Like, there's a whole other level of coaching now, and this is where I do empathize a little bit with Nick Saban. You're having to fight resentment amongst teammates in some cases, are you not? Where some guys are getting the bag.
I'm not as concerned with that. I mean, initially I thought, especially us old linemen, us guys in the trenches, we're realistic. We understand that we're not going to be. I mean, I would make a pretty damn good Wendy's commercial. I mean, I can sell the shit out of that, but like, or cheese or anything of that nature. But just like in the NFL, we understand there's a hierarchy that cheese. But we understand that the guys that score the touchdown and throw the touchdowns and run for the touchdowns and are immediately responsible for preventing those touchdowns, albeit the people that sack the quarterback and the DBs that intercept the ball are the ones that are going to get paid. The ones whose highlights are going to be shown and are the most marketable. And so we get that. I think we understand. I don't think resentment is in the locker room because everybody's getting something that they never got before. So I think that's not as big of an issue. I don't think. What do you say, Dom?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but then I think also just to raise that point again about the TV deals, that's something that, everybody's on TV. So that's something that could be divided equally. That makes sense. It's not just for
you can split that pie easy.
Right.
Yeah, it's not just for the guys that have 1 million followers, So something like that could kind of bring a little more equity to it to guys that maybe don't want to be in a commercial, but still want to profit from their likeness, because again, that's the biggest bucket.
Ironically,
well, I'm not even talking about the guys that are. I'm not even talking about the guys that are scoring touchdowns in the game. That's why I bring up Quinn Ewers. I'm talking about the scrubs that get paid $1 million to come to campus and never see the field, never play, but he's got $1 million in his bag. Mm-hmm. Like, you're at summer camp and you've done picked this dude off 4 times in practice, and he is cheeks. He's a bum. You're letting him know about it. You're trying. Listen, SMU might be for you. You ain't fit for this.
That dude ain't staying there long. That dude is transferring ASAP. But
he's still got $1 million. He's still got the bag.
Yeah, it is what it is. But ironically, you bring up this TV
because I've never been one like
on the heels. I was bringing up this TV money and splitting the pot on the heels of the biggest college moneymaker there is in March Madness. And when you think about the games that people tune in to watch, it's the schools that get the least recognition, the Cinderellas. That's what drives the March Madness to be as popular as it is. And so, like 12, 15 years ago, when Steph Curry wasn't a household name until he made his grand opening or his grand showing at Davidson at March Madness, and it helped him to market himself. It might have helped his draft position, but at the end of the day, he didn't get anything, and March Madness profited off that big time. So, So that's just one of the examples that you bring up of how that would be if you make the tournament. There should be a pot of money from the TV that they separate from the TV deal to anybody that makes the NCAA tournament, and they'd be slotted on how far you go, on how much you get. That seems like an easy fix.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. And you think about, I mean, not just Steph Curry's, but there are a lot of the guys that are, the Cinderellas and the stars of March Madness that never touch an NBA court ever in their lives.
And basketball's a whole other beast.
Yeah.
Basketball's a whole other beast because even their rookie deals in the NBA are once you get to the back half of the first round, you only got 2 rounds in the NBA draft, and you're not making that. Like, you're not making what college football players are making now in NIL in the NBA on your rookie deal.
Yeah, if you're not a lot of
those endorsements,
right.
So, they gotta make that money. That's why they're shaving points like that, like Tim Donaghy and stuff. Like, listen, you're telling me if I'm Steph Curry and I'm like, hey, they got a prop bet for 4.5 3-pointers in this Davidson game, bet it.
Dude,
everybody in the group text is getting that text. Bet it. I'm chucking 23s up against Duke. 4 are going to go in. So
exactly.
Bet the house on it.
Yeah, the advent of sports gambling becoming legal, that's a whole nother ball of wax, as they say. And so coming March, you can't tell me half those kids ain't placing bets on themselves. It's so dang on easy and so hard to monitor, man.
That's why the ones who get in trouble for, like, what are you thinking? Like, what are you doing? There's so many ways, just to get the free bets, I got accounts in my wife's name that I'm using. Like, if I can do it, you're telling me a dude in the NFL couldn't avoid a year-long suspension by having somebody place his
else,
$4 parlay?
Or not do it at the stadium,
Right.
It's the basics,
Don't do it at halftime from the locker room. Maybe hold off on hitting send right there. So I want to talk more about March Madness and stuff. Yeah, let's have some fun now, because we got into the nuts and bolts of the NIL, and that was fun. I appreciate all the insight you brought with that, because
absolutely.
Not everybody understands just how intricate it is. It is so intricate and so detailed and so, like, again, Wild Wild West. It's out of control, and there's so many moving parts to it. So I appreciate you joining that. But let's just talk some sports now. I told you, I saw right before we hopped on, so I'm sure it's everywhere now, they approved the change to a 14-team college football playoff effective 2026.
Yeah.
So we're already talking about that TV money. Yeah. That's what that's about.
Yeah.
They're already expanding to 14 teams. So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, 1 and 2 get a bye, and then you got, 3 versus 14, 4 versus 13, and on and on and on. So this is where I stand on it, because initially when they talked about going to the 12-team playoff, I was upset. Because again, living in Columbus, Ohio, if the Buckeyes have 3 losses or less, you're in. Like, they're just going to be in. That's what it's going to be. So now, if they lose that game against Notre Dame to start the season, you can't lose another one, in the 4-team playoff. Now, what's it matter? You can lose 3, you're still going to make it in and make the run. And I used to think it cheapened the regular season for so many schools. I've changed my position on that. I want to see what you guys think about it. There's one reason why I think every game still matters.
Why is
and it's sports betting. Sports betting, I think I underestimated how much the casual fan was going to be tuned into games they otherwise did not give a shit about, so that they could bet on it. And that was what I was, I wouldn't care about Ohio State versus Purdue if I knew they couldn't, as long as they didn't lose 3 games this season, you're in the playoffs. But if I got 50 on it, I care about Ohio State versus Purdue. And I think a lot of people do. So where do you guys stand on A, the expansion, and B, the expansion of the playoffs? But talk more about that, how much the sports betting is just blown football specifically up.
So I'm a fan. I've always been a fan of expanding the playoff, just for the simple fact that it gives the non-blue bloods a chance, and that's what makes March Madness what it is that there's a chance, and it hardly ever happens, but Butler made it to the national championship 2 years in a row, and they wouldn't have done that if it was just a 16-team playoff or whatever the comparable is for basketball. And so, yes, I want to see Liberty get a chance, even if they lose 72-2. I want them to at least get in there, because what that does is it sets them up.
Florida State lost 70-0, so
right. What it gives, if they don't win this year, it gives them a chance to recruit and get their name out there and possibly become a team later on down the line. Whereas now, or as of recent, they've never had that chance. And so from that aspect, I'm a big fan of expanding, and 14 teams, I think, is a good number. That it's at least more than half of the teams that are ranked. We all know it happens in the NFL all the time, where a 6 seed can go in and run the table. A 7 seed can go in and run the table. Now, it's not as equally matched in college. We know that. You have a lot of haves and haves not. But I think with the 14-team playoff, you'll get to the point where there is more parity down the line 10 years from now.
Yeah, I agree with everything Trey said. I think the exposure that some of these other teams will get will definitely be beneficial to those programs. Having a chance to, maybe a team that you didn't expect be the team that was kind of the favorite coming in. I think all those are important things. I think the one thing that maybe is the counter to all of this excitement is player safety, player health. Like whenever there are kind of incremental expansions of the season, the from the advocate side as a former agent, when the NFL talked about adding games to the season, player health was definitely a big part of that conversation. I don't know if it necessarily, is a huge difference. You're going to be banging all year, but just being mindful of the extra additional stress that maybe it has on the body. But I mean, there's definitely precedent for it as far as your Division 2, Division 3s. They're doing a more traditional playoff system, so it's not unprecedented, but something to just kind of keep an eye on.
I do have a question.
One of the
Rich, real quick, I have a question to both of you guys. Do you think that expanding will slow down the opt-outs and the transfer portals? Do you think it will have an effect on that?
Yeah, I mean, for the playoff teams, yes, because you're not going to have 12 and in a couple of years 14 teams they're not going to opt out of a bowl game that potentially matters for them. Like, if I've always understood why, I'm not a big fan of bowl season now, other than the fact that we get football every day. But again, I'm a bit of a degenerate. I like to bet on these games. I don't know who's going to win these games when everybody's opting out and Devin Brown is going out to play for Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. You just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So from that aspect, I understand. I would advise anybody who's especially going pro to opt out if you're not playing in a playoff game. But yeah, it's got to slow it down for the teams that are playing in a playoff game, because
I hope so.
I'm sure they're going to tie money to that somehow. Like there will be, to Dom's point, eventually this TV pie will be split. And then there will be bonuses, just like coaches get bonuses for making the playoffs, winning conferences. There will be bonuses for the players based off, in my opinion, there will be bonuses for the players based off making the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if you add any kind of money incentive to it, then guys will stick around. I just wonder, will it be enough? Because I think,
and if you go to Boise State, if you're at Boise State and you're in Idaho and you're the 12 seed, why wouldn't you want to go to Tampa for the week in practice, or go to Dallas for the week in Tampa? Get out of Boise, boys. Go get you some cowboy boots and hats.
Get off that blue turf.
Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting. But Dom, I want to take this moment because Nick Saban and college sports as far as the news went, they were the B group. The A group was free agency. And as a former agent, and actually somebody who worked rather close with Mike McCarthy, who was the agent for Kirk Cousins. We'll just call him Pimp. Kirk the Pimp Cousins, because he's been pimping the NFL for the last 5 to 6 years, him and Mike McCarthy, and he just did it again. He's down here.
McCartney. He gets
McCarthy. My bad. McCartney.
He's confused with McCarthy all the time, and they tweet him all the time. Like, what are you doing?
McCartney. My bad. And
He's got his own chain in the background.
I actually know this man
in the background.
But dude, like, is there anything? I don't know if you give me any insight on what you guys' strategy is as an agent, but the timing, and maybe it's just all luck and timing for Kirk. Maybe he just has the best timing ever. But is there anything unique that you guys did from a negotiation standpoint for him? And
that's like that.
Go ahead.
That's a great question. Yeah, I think with Kirk, to have the type of career earnings and the contracts that he's had, it's been the perfect storm. The key thing going into any negotiation is leverage, and like being able to get to free agency and get to it multiple times. It started with
healthy too.
Help. Yeah, I mean, he wasn't totally there this time, but
this timing. Like, the NFL is all about timing, dude. Like, there's so many great players that aren't great or don't have the legacies because the timing just wasn't there. And so
he executed what Johnny Manziel tried to. Like, he's the one who should be after every touchdown, flashing the money signs.
Yeah.
And you like that? You like that?
You like that?
You like that?
So I mean, it takes some timing and luck are definitely big parts of it, but it takes some balls too. Like, you know what I mean? Like these weren't the first offers. You know, you had to turn down a few, and people look at you a little crazy. Like, I mean, come on, you're this. You got one playoff win. You know, take less, but you know, you got to have some belief in your.
Why are they going at Kirk? Kirk, make
Yeah,
your money, man.
Right.
Like, you should be like, this is like, he's setting a standard that hopefully you can benefit from. Like,
absolutely.
Hey, listen, Dom, listen to Trey right now. What he didn't tell you is Kirk moved in next door, and they're going out for dinner next week.
Yeah. We got to get y'all together when he's down there.
We got shirtless Fridays, shirtless gold chain Fridays, man.
They're going golfing in gold chains and no shirts.
Oh, definitely. I can already see it. Already see it. Yeah. So it's been a perfect storm, but yeah, definitely, you know, shout out to those guys, Mike and them over at Vayner. They know what they're doing, man. It's luck and strategy because, like, again, you kind of have the balls to turn down less and know your worth and know what you can get out there and have the, like, I mean, when the first Vikings deal was happening, the phone calls which you say, like, we want a fully guaranteed deal. Like, some people are gonna kind of laugh at you, like, "Oh, you crazy," you know, like, get out of here. But some people are gonna be like, "All right, I'll call you back." So, you know, you gotta have that belief in your client and willingness to, you know, kind of make something different happen. And like, I think Trey was saying that, like, a lot of other guys benefited from that. Like, if that first Vikings fully guaranteed deal didn't happen,
it's coming.
Yeah, then, like, what was Deshaun Watson get that deal?
Yeah. Yep. Aren't you so happy that you got Deshaun Watson, Rich? Aren't you so ecstatic? Without Kirk, you would not. I don't know if we told you, he is a diehard Browns fan, man, and he just love him.
So and Trey
Jameis, though, that's gonna be fun.
That will be fun. Jameis, and I got to cover Jameis when I was living and working in Tampa at CBS Sports when Tampa drafted Jameis. So I got college Jameis to cover. Because Florida State was good, and Florida's a
must see TV
bandwagon fans.
Yeah.
But and then him in Tampa, that dude getting suspended from a game and then just trying to walk back out on the field like it didn't even happen. Like, and the victory formation and going varsity blues. Like, we're gonna put one in the end zone with Winter. Anybody got a problem with that? Nope. Let's go ahead and put it in the end zone.
Nope.
So, but no, and Trey can attest to this. We were kicking the tires around on our podcast ideas. And as we were recording a podcast was when the Deshaun Watson trade news broke and Baker Mayfield released his letter to the media publicly asking for a trade. And back then, and Trey, you can vouch for me on this, I said, I didn't even get into the off the field stuff. It's a bad idea. I did not like the fit. I did not like his fit in Kevin Stefanski's offense. And I thought he benefited greatly from playing in a weak division indoors on a wide open track surface. And he just held the ball too long back then. And since then, he's not stayed healthy and he's held the ball too long. He hasn't fit in Kevin Stefanski's offense. So kudos to the Browns for trying to do something to make it more catered to his skill set this offseason with their hires.
Yeah.
And it actually leads me into my next question, because another thing I saw going on tonight in your interactions as, you know, being an agent and things like that, how much do you guys talk to players about what they're doing on social media? Deshaun Watson is going around blocking people who were upset that the Browns didn't re-sign Flacco as a backup. And I think that dude may just be mentally gone right now. And he was broken by this whole thing. Like,
he was never embraced by Cleveland totally. And then for him to see how they treated Flacco the back half of that season, he's feeling some type of way. He is feeling some type of way.
Yeah.
And it's just, you got it. I don't know why any, especially current playing, they should all hit that little tab that says notifications from only people I follow. while you're playing. Because the stuff that people can say, on social media, there's nothing positive for your mental psyche there. Then you get to a point where you find your spaces to interact with fans and it's fun and stuff. But I just think his confidence has been so shot since this whole process, both the off-field stuff, 2 years in now, and he's really not been good on the field in his 2 years in Cleveland when he has been on the field. And this is just like the latest, he may be too far gone to what are the conversations you as an agent are trying to have to pull somebody out of this, because he's still getting paid and he's going to be counted on to produce.
Yeah. The internet is a tough place, man. It's an unforgiving place, and it's easy to kind of spiral if you are really kind of into that space. So I really try to, when I was advising guys, just to stay away from it. There's not a lot of good can come from it, and a lot of bad can come from it. I actually I'm a professor of sports law as well, and I teach a class. One of our cases is a case from a former client when I was an agent. That was a client of our agency that tweeted some stuff and lost the deal. So it's actually in the textbook. So social media can go wrong in so many different ways. So I try to keep guys away from it, especially when they're in a sensitive headspace where that can negatively affect them. It can negatively affect endorsement deals. Obviously, they could have issues with personal relationships that develop in social media that can go wrong. So it's a difficult place.
Is there one platform that's worse than the others?
Ooh, I would say, I think I guess it changes by time period, right? So
hey, we don't say X on here either. So
okay, yeah.
It's still Twitter.
Okay, yeah. So I would say definitely there was a time when Twitter was the worst. I think Instagram, adding the visual elements, definitely got guys in trouble in certain contexts. And I haven't really heard too much about TikTok yet, but I'm sure that's going to be a thing as well. So
so we don't even mention Facebook.
MySpace. So when Trey and I were in college, we got into some trouble on MySpace back in the day. So it definitely evolved over time and won over
MySpace and Black Planet. I don't know.
And Black Planet. That's Can't forget Black Planet now.
You need to carefully curate your top 8 on MySpace, because people are always watching.
Exactly. Oh,
right.
Listen, Tom was my number 1 my entire time on MySpace. So nobody could say that they were taking Tom's spot.
Where is Tom right now?
Ironically, I read a story about him. He's just living life. He doesn't do it. He doesn't do anything, just rich. He doesn't work.
Filthy rich. I'll give you a dark horse for the worst. And I am assuming here.
Okay.
But a dark horse for an underrated worst social media platform for athletes, I would say Snapchat. Because they think it can't be released. They think it goes away.
You think it goes away, yeah.
Little do you know.
Screen record, yeah.
Right. Or using another phone or iPad, because people got 2 devices.
Yeah.
And so,
man.
Is Snapchat still a thing?
I think they're trying to make a resurgence. They're doing ads. They did ads during the Super Bowl and stuff. So, they're trying to bring it back.
But, hey, they should have just stuck with MySpace. But Tom got his friend. He got his bag, and he did. He was done.
He was out.
He's been sitting on the beach. So, Dom, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you hanging out with us for tonight.
Absolutely. Have fun.
Dry.
Oh, I'm so
trading still nothing.
We'll have.
Okay.
He's still dry. We'll have to do it again, man. Enjoy the March Madness. Enjoy the games. We'll let's try to reconnect sometime around football season, if not before.
Sounds great.
Appreciate it, brother.